The Utah Jazz complete utter ability to score in first quarters is limiting their ability to win basketball games. Pretty simple. It's Locked On Jazz. Pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Locked On Jazz for the 6th of March. The Jazz attrition has taken out their juice, and their lack of offensive prowess early in game has them playing from behind, and it's simply too much to ask. The lack of three-point shooting is not a solvable problem. So where are the Jazz heading? High-level play in the NBA is a reminder of the next tier. It's a Trends Monday, and we might as well, since we're kind of on the outside in for the first time, play NBA Draft Lottery. It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen. We are free, available on every podcasting app, as well as on YouTube, where you can join the community, join the group, chat about what it's like to be a Jazz fan right now as a disappointing offensive weekend in Oklahoma City has the Jazz now 10th in the Western Conference, and suddenly the lottery is looking more likely than the play-in with a brutal schedule the rest of the way for the Utah Jazz. Thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate you. This is hard, I think, for Jazz fans because we've had this kind of exhilarating season, and then I think, what I truly think has happened, I don't know if I've discussed this with you guys. I've had this conversation a lot. What happened is, we all went into the season kind of understanding. I remember doing one of my first shows that it's a 36 to 48 month process, and everything has to be viewed through that lens. And then Lauri was great, and Walker and Ochai have been surprises, and Jordan showed another side of his game, and Mike held up relatively well, and all these things took place, and we were hovering a little bit well above 500. Then we got to 500 after the Mike injury, and then we stayed in 500. We stayed in the play, and then all of a sudden, all of us, including myself, switched our focus to the micro on the night-to-night basis of how the team is playing and whether the team is winning and whether we're going to make the play-in. And the fact of the matter is that really the 36 to 48 month window that the Jazz are in here of trying to get the team up to a championship level is where our mindset should be, but that's impossible. And so now all of a sudden you have these games and it feels kind of disappointing. So I don't know if it is in the big picture disappointing. I think what we're seeing take place right now is just a war of attrition, and the Jazz are worn out. I mean, we're putting some lineups on the floor that just are not viable long-term lineups for teams to win games. I mean, we had some grouping. We had Juan Toscano Anderson, Johnny Juzang, Damian Jones, Simone Fontecchio, and Talen Horton-Tucker to open the second quarter the other night. None of those guys were rotation players in the before the trade deadline. Now, Will played around and put Kelly Olynyk onto the floor of that group in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, and they got much better. And this is, a little bit of what you're trying to do. You're trying to find the little matches of what's going on. But what's really happened, and we kind of knew this when the year started, is that Mike Conley was the thread that was holding this thing together. Our first quarter offense has been below a point of possession in the first quarter of all but 2 games since with all but 3 games since the Mike Conley trade. So the first game against Minnesota, we were fine. Here's our offensive rating in first quarters. Offensive rating, by the way, league average is about 115 now. Anything under 105 is actually pretty tough. Anything over 125 is pretty great. Kind of a good way to look at it. It used to be 100 and 120, but offense is up so much. So here's our first quarter offenses for the recent stretch. Toronto 97, Knicks 98, Indiana 99, Memphis 86, Thunder 98. Spurs game 1, 95. Spurs game 2, 112. Oklahoma City game 1, 112. Last night, 71. 71 in the first quarter last night was our 64th best offensive performance of the year in first quarters. I believe we have played 65 games. We were worse against the Rockets in the first quarter on the fourth game of the season. Some of this is, hey, Collin Sexton goes out in that Memphis game, and we suddenly lose that, and then we've been playing this kind of Jordan Clarkson or Lauri Markkanen game, and when you don't have one of those guys, then it allows Lou Dort to go guard the other. And so, you really are seeing, if you look at it, some of what you're seeing is like what it takes here. And boy, does it take a lot to be great. Like if you're going to have Lou Dort on the other team, you better have another bona fide scorer on the floor, or it's going to be really, really hard for you to be able to get the ball to Jordan Clarkson or be able to get the ball to Lauri Markkanen. By the way, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. The promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. I mean, I want to do my PrizePicks ad right now, but like if I know that we're playing only one guy and you're going up against Lou Dort, like that's a pretty good PrizePicks play right there. And so this is just a little bit of a war of attrition for the Jazz right now. And the offense is really the struggle. And the offense seems to have worn out the defense a little bit. So our offensive performances last night turned out to be fine, which is a little misleading in the sense that you had that first quarter that was so miserable, and then people play the score. That's what's hard when you get to this point is the other team plays the score, and so sometimes evaluation's hard. But if you look at our recent games so we've played 65 games, Memphis was our 7th worst defensive game of the year. Or 7th worst defensive game of the year. First Thunder at home was our 9th worst defensive game of the year. Spurs was our worst, offensive. So again, Memphis was without Collin. This is since Collin went out. So if we don't have all of our guys, we don't have Collin, Jordan, and Lauri, in every single of these games, we're missing one of our guys. Like the war of attrition is just wearing us down. Memphis was our 7th worst offensive game. Thunder was our 9th worst offensive game. Spurs game we lost was our worst offensive game of the year. And then Thunder first game was our 3rd worst offensive game of the year. Last night actually turns out fine. It's not. The unfortunate thing is both the last two games against the head-down driving Thunder, the defense, which had been really pretty good, our 3rd and 4th best defensive performances of the year against the Spurs, our 11th best against the Thunder in Salt Lake, our 32nd and 26th against Indiana and Memphis on the road. Like, actually, Toronto was a really good defense. We'd had a lot of really good defensive performances. The last two games, the defense fell apart a little bit as well. So it's just really hard right now. And some of it's just we don't have, you lose Malik Beasley and you lose Mike Conley, and you just don't have the shooting. If you go kind of dig into our three-point shooting here recently, and it just, you have to be able to make three-point shots in this league. And over the last 5 games now, we are 62 of 200 or 65 of 212, which is 31% from three. And the corner three, which is what we've predicated the offense on and built the offense about, and really was our kind of claim to fame going into last night's game was 32% for the last 5 games. We were at 40% early in the year. We were 2 of our last 20 at one point on corner threes last night before. And then Fontecchio hits, I think, 2 of them. That straightens out that number a tiny bit last night, but I am pulling it up as we speak right now. So last night we were 3 of 11, so it's actually not any better. Our last 3 games on corner threes were 5 of 29. So we just, we just don't have the shooters. We don't have the prowess to kind of get these things done, and it's going to get a little tough here, I think. And obviously, if Lauri comes back and Jordan comes back and Collin comes back all at the same time, you have 3 bona fide scorers. And some of this can get better. Our above-the-break three-point shooting, which has not been great for the season. It's only 34%. It's been 32% after the Minnesota game since the trades. And I think this, our corner three shooting I just talked about, it's 41% for the season. I mean, we were really the best in the league. Since the trades, we're 32% from corner threes and 32% from above the break threes. So offense is really the struggle. The war of attrition has worn us out and makes it awfully tough right now for the Utah Jazz. I want to talk about just kind of some of the stuff we saw in the league and some high, as well as we'll do our daily trends, and then we're going to play the lottery every day for the rest of the way, just for the fun of it. See if we can have some fun with our offensive struggles and watch where we sit and how it plays out and root against the Minnesota Timberwolves as well. It's a Monday edition of Locked On Jazz, and it's brought to you by our friends over at Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross, also located in Logan. Murdoch Chevy is the Murdoch family, over 80 years in Utah, making sure that you have the best experience you can possibly have, as well as making sure that you've got the best lineup of trucks out there, which is the Colorado and the Silverado. Absolutely awesome setup of trucks. Of those two solves every need you possibly have. And then the SUV lineup is really solid as well. Of course, it's let off with the Suburban and the Tahoe, but it runs all the way down to the Trax and the Blazers and the Trailblazer, and Chevy's got the whole lineup for you. So if you're looking for a new truck, the Silverado and Colorado are simply the best-made trucks on the market. And the Murdoch family's been in Utah for over 85 years, making sure that you have the best experience you possibly can. So go stop by Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross, also in Logan. Feel free to email me first for your VIP meeting. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is also brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks gives you the 100% deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. Like I was saying, I'm not allowed to bet. I'm not allowed to give betting advice, so it's after the fact. So, like Lou Dort, best defensive player in the league, injuries, only one scorer. Those are the things you're looking for. Can you find those little nooks and those little crannies so that you can get yourself a perfect matchup? Because you're not betting against other people in PrizePicks. What you're doing is you're actually picking against projections. So you pick 2 to 6 players. If they're going to go score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you can win up to 25% of your money on any entry. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport, including all of March Madness stuff that's coming up here: men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, the rest. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals currently operational in 30 states or more. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKDOWN. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKDOWN at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. For your second listen, Locked On Sports Today is the 22-minute recap of all things sports that's taking place in the sports world. I'm also really enjoying Locked On NBA Big Board right now. Those guys are doing fabulous work. Richard and Raphael did a show last week on kind of guys that might prosper from March. Leaf Tulane did a segment. He's an incredible draft expert. And you're going to get I think you're going to get a lot of Leaf coming up here on Locked On heading toward the draft. And Leaf did an incredible segment on top 10 players in the draft, so some great stuff there. I don't want to, hey, we're talking about the offensive struggles in the big picture. Let's talk about, a little bit of what we're getting here is an opportunity to see guys do things. And Johnny Juzang really doing some neat stuff. If you look at Johnny Juzang's career, he's out of Harvard Westlake in Southern California, which actually was at one point ranked the number 1 high school in the country. And so Johnny Juzang and he goes to Kentucky. He's a top 30 recruit in the class of 2019, and he goes to Kentucky. He plays there for a year. He plays 28 games. He plays about 12 minutes a night, and then he goes to UCLA and has that incredible 2021 season, scores 16 points a game, and is, really carries them to the deep into the final, to the NCAA tournament, and is super impressive in all that he's doing there. Then his next year, he doesn't go pro. He comes back for his next year, and he's solid, but for whatever reason, he kind of gets himself out of the draft picture and goes undrafted at 6'7", 215 pounds. Little bit of a belief that he doesn't have a three-point shot in the process. A little bit of a belief that he might not translate into the NBA game, and he scores 20 points a game for the Stars. And last night, he does a really, really nice job with a three-point shot. His footwork is good. There were a lot of indicators last night that this guy has a real chance. Now, I always get really nervous when we decide that a guy is that good when he just makes a bunch of shots, right? But there were things like he came off a curl and got his feet set. He did go, he went 3 of 6 from 3. He hit his corner threes. But frankly, that's pretty important too, is the fact that he's been playing a lot of G League time, and he's got to be able to prove in his G League time that he can shoot it, and he's done that. So this is one where I think, you see Johnny Juzang have a night like that, and Johnny Juzang has to continue to play, and has to just continue to show some rebounding and some assists and doing some other things along the way. But this is where the next 15 games, kind of one of the comments I think that Justin Zanuck said at one point is, we're going to know about our players. We're going to know. We're not going to finish this year not knowing about our players. I think there was a little feeling inside the organization that when they let Jared Butler go, that they never really got a large enough sample size to know whether or not he was that good. And they want to make sure that they know. So get him in NBA games, get him in big-time matchups, and see. I think Chris Dunn's getting super interesting. Chris Dunn, 17 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. Again, I do get a little nervous about all these numbers coming when you're down 20. And you're looking at those, some of the intensity level on the defensive end might not be the same. And you can get I think you can get a little overly excited about analysis, but hey, you got to make shots. So you got to still make shots, do things, make plays, and do all those things. So I don't want to undersell it, but I do get a little nervous. You'll hear that from me a lot. Hey, we were down 20 last night going in the second half, and all of a sudden our offense goes from a 97 to a 115. To me, that just means that Oklahoma City played the score. Teams play the score all the time, right? First half last night, is it we got better or did they play the score? I guess that's, you could take each side of it. I have a tendency to side on, they played the score. So when you look at it, but this is kind of what the next set of games are. Is we're short on guys. We've had attrition. Let's let Johnny Juzang play and see what he can show, right? First half last night, the Jazz go 16 to 42. Johnny went 2 of 2. We shoot 38% and 24% from 3. We're down 19. Second half last night, the Jazz shoot 59% from the field and 38% from 3. You still got to make the shots, right? I got that. Clarkson last night, 9 assists in the second half. Definitely helped. He kind of figured out how to handle Lou Dort. Lou Dort got in some foul trouble, attacked, made plays for other guys. So I think the Johnny Juzang story is really interesting. And I think this is kind of what we're doing is getting a chance to see this guy make some plays, see what he can do. The other one is, Walker and Ochai. Ochai comes off a curl last night from right to left, and another time he comes off a curl from left to right. And both times he makes really, really good plays and finishes at the basket with his left hand and finishes the basket with his, or at least got to the basket with his right hand. Took 5 free throws last night, which has been my concern, is that he just simply, isn't getting the foul line at all. Well, 5 was a career high last night. So I think you start to see things like that from Ochai. And frankly, the crazy one last night is in 30 minutes, Ochai was even on the plus-minus. You see Walker last night, 17 minutes, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks, a force. Walker is the 4th best rim defender in the NBA right now. It's incredible. The only guys better than Walker so far this year, defending at least 5 shots within 6 feet, are Draymond Green, Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time. Giannis, Defensive Player of the Year. And Jaren Jackson Jr., who will win Defensive Player of the Year this year. Or could. Right? He or Brook Lopez should win Defensive Player of the Year this year. So, really, truly remarkable kind of by Walker. So there's a lot of, hey, as much as I focused on, and if what's going on, which is we just can't score. we just had an attrition to our offensive players and we're not able to score, is that there are a bunch of little high-level plays that are being made by guys. So Ochai coming off the curl with a left hand to a finish, Ochai coming off a right hand, that's a high-level play. Johnny Juzang making some shots and looking like he belongs, that's a high-level play. We got some really good teams coming up. Let's see what he can do. Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn looks every bit a backup point guard in the NBA. Now, he really is not a particularly natural shooter, but has he figured out? He shot over 40% from three in the G League this year. Has he figured out how to shoot? Enough. It's a slow, methodical release. But you know what? So far with the Jazz, he's hit, I think about over 40% of them. 6 of 14. Is that the answer? He's got his little floater in the lane. He looks really comfortable with that. He's making it at a high level, maybe too high a level to maintain. But it has been, Chris Dunn is another positive in here of high-level play. So we're seeing some nice high-level play moments from a bunch of Jazz players in the midst of a massive offensive struggle. Kelly Olynyk deserves some praise, too. 15 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. He continues to do a lot of things really, really well for the Jazz in those matchups. All right, league trends, and we'll play our first lottery of the year. Just might as well have some fun with it all here on Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Built Bar. I've got just a cadre of Built Bars over there carrying me through this massively long road trip. Oh, mental state of the road trip, I'll have to update everyone. Oklahoma City, it's just a miserable place. So, Built Bar. Let's talk Built Bar. Let's talk 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, a whopping 17 grams of protein. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And we tell you got to go to getitbuilt.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15 or LOCKED15 to get your 15% off. Well, now you can go to a local Walmart and Sam's Club. You can get the 4-box cookies and cream double chocolate coconut puffs if you're nearby Walmart. And if you're close to Sam's Club, you can run in and grab a 13-bar box of hit flavors, brownie, batter, churro, and you can thank me later for doing that. Or you can do it the old school way and go to built.com. They have vanilla cream is back today, 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar. Brownie buffs are now gluten-free, and all the other great flavors are there for you as well. It's all our good friends over at Built. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. I strongly suggest Locked On NBA Big Board to fire you up for the NBA draft. All right, let's do Trends Monday. Boy, the games were amazing. You watched that Phoenix-Dallas game last night. You watched that Milwaukee-Philadelphia game on Saturday. You watched some of these games. Boy, Golden State Lakers, actually, Anthony Davis. I mean, you can understand, you got to have superstar talent in this league. Bona fide, big-time superstar talent in this league. Massive superstar talent. It's a really interesting question of where Donovan and Rudy fit in that. We just don't need to do it anymore, but it's a really interesting question. It might really answer why Danny did what Danny did. Because you watch Giannis and Harden and Embiid and Durant and Booker and Doncic and Kyrie and Anthony Davis last night and Steph usually. He's not quite right on his first game back. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. The shot making, the play, the game, just truly awesomeness in this league right now. It's incredible. All right, let's go to the last 10 games. Last time we did this, it was not great but this is now, since the trade deadline, the number one offensive team in the league is Sacramento, followed by the Knicks. Isn't that crazy? They've won 9 of 10, and Tom Thibodeau's team is the number 2 offensive team in the last 10 games. Mavericks, who are 4-10 in this standpoint, are the 3rd best offensive team. Philadelphia is 4th, and Milwaukee, whose offense has been a struggle, is up to 5. Denver is 6. So the best teams offensively have clicked in. Sacramento 1, Knicks 2, Dallas 3, Philadelphia 4, Milwaukee 5, and Denver 6 over the last 10 games. Who are the teams who are struggling to score? San Antonio, or Detroit's at a 105. San Antonio's at 106. We'll see Charlotte 107 offensive rating. They're 5-5. Miami still can't score. They're 27th. Brooklyn, and then Orlando, who we'll see on this trip as well. So 2 games coming up on this trip against teams that are struggling to score. The Jazz in the last 10 games are 22nd in the league offensively. Remember, we were 4th. Who's the best defensive teams in the league in the last 10 games? Memphis is 1, Bucks 2, Lakers 3, Charlotte is 4, Toronto's 5, and Orlando is 6. So Orlando and Charlotte have a tough time scoring, but they're playing great defense. Teams that aren't defending at all, Portland is a disaster, 124. Sacramento is 2. Indiana, Houston, and then Dallas not defending at all. So 5th worst defensive team in the last 10 games for Dallas, which is since the Kyrie trade. Clippers are not defending either in that stretch. Let's go to the last 2 weeks and take out blowout time using cleaning the glass. That'll give us a little bit of a different perspective sometimes. Oh, wait a sec. I forgot to do one thing in there. Who are the best teams overall? I just gave you offense, defense. So let's look at who are the best teams in the last 10 games. The Knicks are number 1, Milwaukee's 2, Denver's 3, Cleveland holds to 4, Memphis 5, and Philadelphia 6. Not a good weekend for Memphis. The worst teams in the league over the last stretch are San Antonio, Houston, Detroit, Brooklyn, Portland, and Miami. All right, for your most recent trends, the best offense in the NBA over the last 2 weeks now, and this is going to be somewhat similar. Those are 6 games instead of 9, so this is a little bit more minute. Sacramento, New York, Dallas, Atlanta. It's interesting since Quinn took over, probably. Milwaukee and Philadelphia. So Sacramento, New York, Dallas, Atlanta, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia are the best offenses in the NBA the last 2 weeks. Teams that can't score right now are Detroit, Charlotte, Boston, San Antonio, Toronto, and Utah. Toronto's still hanging in there. Defensively, the best teams in the league over the last 2 weeks are the Warriors, Charlotte, we'll see on this trip, Lakers, Toronto, Memphis, and then Utah. Non-blowout minutes, we come out 6th best defensive team over the last 5 games. They had those 2 really good games against San Antonio. Houston, Sacramento, Portland, Clippers, Dallas, Indiana not defending at all. And the best point differential teams over the last 2 weeks are the New York Knicks, Milwaukee Bucks, Phoenix Suns, Atlanta Hawks, Golden State Warriors, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Pretty interesting. Number 1 point differential overall in the NBA right now is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Is that true? Boston just lost enough that now the overall point differential, number 1 point differential in non-blowout minutes is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Are they a legit title contender? I don't feel like they are. I feel like it's just Milwaukee, Boston, Philly. 2 teams in the top 10 offensively and defensively are Cleveland, Boston, Memphis, Philadelphia. That's it. And Boston's the only team top 5 in both. I still think Boston's probably the favorite here. All right, let's have some fun. Let's do our first ever lottery simulation. As of right now, the Jazz come in with the 11th pick, and we have Minnesota as a playoff team as the 18th pick. And we hit the lottery, and the Lakers win the lottery, and the pick goes to the New Orleans Pelicans. Indiana would pick 2nd. Washington picks 3rd. Charlotte 4th. Detroit 5th. Houston 6th. And San Antonio 7th. My goodness, that would be a disaster for them after going through that season. Orlando 8. Chicago 9. That goes to Orlando. So Orlando would have 8 and 9. Portland 10. Oklahoma City would pick 11th. The Jazz would pick 12th in our first day lottery. New Orleans would pick 13th. That would go to the Lakers. Toronto 14th. And Minnesota would pick 18th. We would get that pick. We would also get the Philadelphia pick at 27. So in our first ever lottery, the Jazz end up 12th, 18th, and 27th. That is Locked On Jazz. Have a great one. Thanks for tuning in.